Manual equipment.
All right, so you guys haven't run this yet,
No.
correct? Have you guys talked about it last year?
We've looked at it,
You
yeah.
looked at it and you know the gist of what's going on here. Okay, so I'll just run you through the startup procedure. Usually when I do my procedures, I start at one point on the skid, do a full walk around, do all my pre-start checks. By the time I'm back to the control panel, I'm ready to hit the go button. So I don't have a specific order like they write on the papers with the procedures. I usually do it a slightly different order just as I walk around. So starting out at the controls here, our control panel, our mode selector box, and this guy here controls the back pressure on the air receiver tank. This breaker's for our motor. So we have two breakers for our motor, the local one right here, and there's one on the 4th floor. So first things I do is make sure I got power. So breaker up, there is a hidden switch for the power panel underneath, make sure that's up. And power on, good, I got power, great. I keep it off until I'm done my pre-start checks, just in case someone bumps into the start button or something, it doesn't scare me or I don't have my fingers where they shouldn't be when it's running. So I keep it off, I know there's power, good. The funny thing about this one, because it's so old, is this is the alarm silence switch. It's not spring loaded. So when you have it in the down position, it's constantly silencing the alarm. And you'll see this little light kind of blink. It's really soft and kind of dim because it's old. So you gotta make sure it's up, that way we'll hear the alarm. If you leave it down, you'll never hear it come in. All right. Then we select a mode. So for us here in this lab, it really won't matter which mode you're gonna choose. So play with it or just use one, it does not matter. Load, unload mode. Once we hit our set point of 80 PSI, the valves on the compressor just get unloaded. The compressor keeps moving, but it doesn't produce any pressure. Then once we fall below a set point, those unloaders kick off and it starts compressing again. So it's just a little bit more efficient for on-off operation if our set point's changing a lot. The on-off mode, once we hit that set point, it actually turns off the motor until the pressure comes back down and starts back up. So this would be better if we're not using a lot of air, if we're only using maybe a liter or two a minute, and we start up the compressor every half hour, because there's a heck of a lot of amp and volt draw when we start up the motors. And so if we're always, using a lot of air and this thing's going between its set points on and off, then the load unload is better because it keeps the motor running. We're not doing that startup amp and volt drop, and it can real easily turn on and off or produce pressure on and off. So just choose one, it doesn't matter. We'll do load unload. And then our control valve, right? So the red little dial is where we want the valve to open up. The orange dial is our current pressure reading. So if I want 40 PSI to be maintained there, set it to 40, right? Once it hits 40 PSI in our air receiver, this valve that it controls opens up, bleeds off all the excess air. So to have this stuff work, you have to be over 80, right? Anywhere over 80. Otherwise, it'll never hit these set points. So it doesn't matter. Set it wherever. Our normal operating condition for this guy would be about 80 PSI. So for us to make it really work well with our testing, I would set it just a hair below 80, so it never hits this set point and just constantly runs, right? So you'll notice the piece of paper in there. This is old equipment. It does kind of wiggle once this whole skid is pumping and there's a lot of vibration, and it does cause this little red dial to move around. So just a little piece of paper, gently jam it in there. It gives a little bit more, keeps it in place.
Engineering.
So on startup, off all the way. Keeps it nice, easy startup. It doesn't have to work against any pressures. Gets it moving nice and easy. Good. On this side here, this is the last thing I check for power. This is our power meter going to the motor. Like I said, there's two breakers, one here for our motor and one on the 4th floor. So I don't want to do very much walking.
Hey Mark,
Hey.
I just did the first here, shut down the air, the full work.
Oh. No, we'll be fine.
Okay, just until you
Yeah.
shut it down.
Thanks.
First years.
So yeah, I don't like walking a lot, right? We're more efficient than lazy, right? So by looking here, if you see numbers and stuff on this, you know the power's on from upstairs. If you got no numbers here and this is in the on position, then you know someone turned it off upstairs. That way you don't have to walk up just to see, yeah, it's on. So good, just check it there. We got power from upstairs, everything's hunky-dory. Coming over here, we got our aftercoolers. So they're parallel aftercoolers, they work together, and what we're gonna do is maintain a temperature at the outlet. So we got thermocouples number 8 and number 9. All of them should have a number on them, and there's a dial on the other side of our control panel that you can tune in. Our goal with the aftercoolers is to make sure air coming into this knockout drum is room temperature. So about 20 to 25 Celsius, that's our range of goals. So we're gonna look at those temperatures. Cooling water comes in through the bottom, through the aftercoolers, out the top. Now this is where it gets a little tricky. We can have the water that went through the aftercoolers go to the cooling jacket for the cylinder, or have it go directly back to our return line to the cooling tower. So we can have the two coolers on the system work in series or parallel. For us, it doesn't matter. When you write your procedure, you might want to just note it. This is how you do parallel, this is how you do series. But when we're just running to run this, it really makes absolutely no difference. So the way it works is the water comes out top here, and if we want it to do parallel, just go directly back to the cooling towers. We want this ball valve and this ball valve open, they go back into our main return line. Off and out. If we want it in series, where the water goes from this aftercooler to the jacket on the cylinder, this ball valve, and then this globe valve kind of controls how much water goes over there. And again, these would be closed and vice versa for series. Right? So on startup, we don't need it. We want stuff to get up to temperature first. It's going to take a little while before we start seeing a need for cooling water. So startup, I would just double check. Everything's looking good, in place, cooling water's on, etc., etc. Once it's running, then I check my temperatures, 8 and 9. If it's over 25 degrees Celsius, open up some water. If it's under 20, let it be. Yeah, you got a little room to play. Use your judgment there. All right, around the back here. So this white tank, I call my wet receiver or knockout drum. So all the air coming out of the aftercoolers gets in here. So because we're cooling the air, there's always the chance moisture is going to come out, and we don't want that going anywhere else. So underneath here, there's a little globe valve, and you want it just cracked open. So I'd like to make sure it's closed, and then give it about half a turn open. I don't want a lot of open there, because once it starts up, air is going to be howling out there. It doesn't need to be loud or full blast, just enough to help any moisture in there get out. So just cracked open, about half turn.
That's it, that's the drain right there.
Yep, so you can see a little water coming out. That's all we need to see. Once the air compressor starts up, it's going to start forcing more water out.
Where's it gonna drain?
Right on there. Right there.
Just in a swat?
Just water. Yeah, it'll be maybe a cup of water. So it's not a lot, and it's going to evaporate anyways. We can grab a mop if you're really concerned about it, but it dries up really quick. All right, so here's our cooling water to the jacket for our cylinder. If we had this stuff set up in series, water comes this way from the aftercoolers up and in. If we had them set up parallel, here's the fresh water supply. So make sure it's off on startup. You can turn it on, see the little dial going, make sure you got water to this, and close it up. Right? These two valves up top here are just balancing for this cylinder, or for the jacket. So on the supply side or suction side, it's going to be a little bit cooler because that air hasn't been compressed yet. On the discharge side, it's going to be a little hotter because that's where the compression is happening. So you'll probably want to balance it so you got a little bit more water going to the hotter side than to the colder side. It is one common chamber in there, so even if you only have one open, both sides are going to get water.
That's where your cooling water, that's for your jacket there.
The jacket's
cylinder
inside.
jacket.
Yep.
Yeah. Right.
And then both of these lines go together in one common jacket, and they both exit in one common line.
Right.
So we'll talk about that in a bit. All right. For the belts and stuff, just take a look. Anything loose, belt still on, anything broken, on fire, etc., etc. We're all good.
So sorry, Mark, you said
Yep.
that this line comes in this way, right?
Yes.
So
Oh yeah, never trust what anyone writes on. Yeah.
Okay.
So keep that in mind. All right, while we're here, we've got our suction knockout drum. Same idea, we're knocking out any moisture, but because we're Calgary here, air is really dry anyways, you're probably not gonna see anything come out. So on startup, I like to open it, just confirm there's no water on my suction side, close it. Right. Don't need to keep it open. And then we're gonna come to our main air receiver tank. Same thing as the other knockout tank, just make sure it's cracked open. Doesn't need to howl. And away we go.
We didn't start it.
All right. As we walk around here, just check loose connections, etc. Common sense check.
That was open after.
Yeah, this was all
And then
open
we'll
up.
go back to the
Yeah, this was
front.
all here though.
So this air dryer totally works. It actually will dry air, but it's locked out because the four-way valve behind it is seized. So it's stuck in a position that it just pops the safety. So the air dryer actually works. The four-way valve broke. So I've locked it closed on the inlet and outlet, and I have the bypass locked open. So just confirm no one's undone it and no one put it in a bad position. Worst thing that'll happen, you pop a safety. So you can't really hurt anything. But just confirm, still locked out as it is. And then we have this little power switch here. So this power switch powers our airflow transmitter way up back there. So that's where you'll measure your airflow on the skid. With the power off, you'll never see anything, so make sure you got it on. All right, out to the front, we've got oil level down at the bottom, this little bullseye. You want to see halfway, no water. You don't want it to look milky, no flakes or anything floating around in there. General oil level and quality check. Common sense checks, no leaks, no fires, no loose connections, etc., etc. We should be good. All right, then we're back here and we should be ready to go. So power on, and when we hit the start button, we're gonna see this, where is it, low frame oil pressure light come on, and it'll come on until we start building pressure through the movement of the piston. In about 5 or 6 seconds, it should turn off. If it doesn't, shut down, we'll call it maintenance. But anyways, we'll turn it on, we'll watch it. Once the light goes off, then I close my drains. Yes.
What about that switch?
This high discharge pressure switch. So it's just a cutoff.
Okay.
So there are a couple of cutoffs around here. We got high pressure discharge. We've got high oil temperature. There's a high discharge temperature and a vibration switch. If it makes you feel good inside, you can press them all before you start. The only reason that you'd need to press them is if it tripped on one of those the last time it was operating.
Gotcha.
So generally, you shouldn't ever see these tripped unless something went wonky, someone was banging on the vibration switch. So you don't need to press the buttons, but if it makes you feel good, can't hurt pressing them. All right, so power's on, horns on, we're in a mode.